of the show live from Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. Day 2 of what has been one of the coolest things that I have been able to do in my career, to come out here to Vegas, to Circa Resort, and to be a part of this big weekend Circa Sports is having as they launch their 2024 football contest, including their Survivor Pro Football contest, where the winner is going to walk away with $9.2 million. This has been really cool, and I'm kind of sad that it's almost over, but only a couple of days, so it's quick, but it's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to doing the show today. Mike Palm of Circa will join me a little bit later on this hour. He is their VP of Ops, but he also does a fair amount of talking on the radio himself. So I'll talk to him in just a little bit. So that's where I am. And wherever you might be, I certainly appreciate your patronage, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the new and improved Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. Veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the next 3 hours. The text and the phone line, even though I am in Vegas, remains the same. 719-247-1313. Sean Payton, much like you and I, have seen everything we need to see when it comes to Bo Nix. As earlier this afternoon, Sean Payton said that Bo Nix will not play Sunday in the Broncos preseason finale against the Arizona Cardinals. But the other two quarterbacks will. Let me start with the Bo Nix side of this, just to reinforce that I do agree with Sean Payton here. What Bo Nix has shown over the past couple of weeks is that second stringers, third stringers, guys that are going to get cut come Monday, they're really not any match for him. Like, he's shown that he is better than going up against a defense comprised of those kind of players. Right? Game 1, he looked comfortable, which rookie quarterbacks don't always do, even against second stringers and third stringers. Second game, I thought it looked easy for him. Easy for him to make reads, easy for him to make plays. So to me, you could say, well, he's a rookie. He needs all the reps, the 10,000 hours thing, right? Well, Bo Nix is probably over 10,000 hours of football over the course of his life anyway. But you have to ask yourself, with the inherent risk that comes with injury, how high quality are these reps going to be? You've already named the guy the starting quarterback based on what you've seen over the past couple of weeks. Going against another based vanilla defense in the Arizona Cardinals, I wonder how much better Bo Nix can get, how much more ready he can get going up against that. I think at this point, honestly, you're saying the defense he goes up against in practice might be better reps than going up against the Arizona Cardinals 2s and 3s. And I get why Sean Payton wanted to play all his guys, especially Bo Nix, right, through the first couple of games. But you did that. You got out of it unscathed. Don't tempt fate. There's nothing more that you can see from Bo Nix. The next kind of snaps he needs are against first stringers in games that count. And that will be the next time we see Bo Nix suit up for the Denver Broncos, or play, I should say, for the Denver Broncos. So I think Sean Payton's making the right call here. Now, we know Not compared to years past, because there was some belief that the backup quarterback of the Denver Broncos was actually better than the starter. I don't think that belief is currently held by Broncos fans. Jared Stidham versus Zach Wilson. How is that going to be handled? Sean Payton says Jared Stidham will get 8 to 12 snaps, and then it will be the Zach Wilson show, which is pretty much what I expected it to be. Because the Denver Broncos and Sean Payton are trying to shop Zach Wilson so hard right now. And they've been doing it for a couple of weeks. And Sean Payton's been doing it in the games. He's been doing it when he appears on podcasts with Diana Rossini and Chase Daniel. He's done that with the local media. He is trying to, like Gretchen from Mean Girls, make fetch happen. He's trying to make Zach Wilson happen to convince another team to trade for him. And something that so the fact that he's playing Zach Wilson the vast majority of the game does not surprise me one bit. Now, something that Sean Payton said today. He said he has a good idea, while he would not divulge whether it's 2 quarterbacks or 3. He said he has a good idea of how many quarterbacks he is going to keep on this roster. And then he proceeded to reiterate how much he likes the room. I think Sean Payton is okay with keeping 3 quarterbacks on his roster. Is that what he wants to do? No. Unless you are last year's Cleveland Browns, you do not need to take 3 quarterbacks. Okay, we found out in the NFL over the last couple of years how much more important it is to have a backup quarterback. Broncos have that guy. It's Jared Stidham, and he's everything you want a backup quarterback to be. Unless things get really nutty and you have some really bad luck, again, Cleveland Browns of 2023, you don't need 3 quarterbacks. And if you have to go to your 3rd string quarterback, your season is probably done for anyway. Unlike the Cleveland Browns of last year. So I think Sean Payton is okay with the idea of keeping 3 quarterbacks. I do not think that is his preference. Or else, why would he be selling Zach Wilson so hard? He is more complimentary of Zach Wilson than Bo Nix. I mean, really think about it. He has said more nice things. He has exuded more emotion and positivity over training camp and the preseason for Zach Wilson more than Bo Nix. He is trying to shop this guy to the other 31 teams. And while I do believe that he would be okay in theory with keeping 3 quarterbacks on his roster and it not being his preference, this is also something you need to do if you're trying to sell somebody. Here's what I mean. So Sean Payton has spent the better part of a month hyping up Zach Wilson to try and make him, more, to make him more sellable, right? To try and get other teams to buy into it, to trade for Zach Wilson. Okay? In the game, he schemed it up a little bit, more Indy than Green Bay. I think Zach Wilson's stock took a little bit of a dip, if there was any stock worth buying to begin with, in the Green Bay game. Now he has to do the other thing, which is, oh no, I'm not even looking to trade him. I'm telling you how good he is, and then when you call me, I'm going to tell you I'm not willing to trade him. So he's got to try and drive up the demand a little bit here. I don't know who Zach Wilson's agent is, but I feel like Sean Payton's doing this guy's job for him. made him look really good in week 1 of the preseason, has gone on national shows, talked to the local media about how good Zach Wilson is. And now he's playing hard to get. Right? Making us all think, I think correctly, that he would take 3 if it came to that. He would keep 3 quarterbacks if it came to that. Trying to drive up the demand, create this market out of nothing for Zach Wilson. Because remember, it was only a few months ago that Zach Wilson had no market. The Jets they didn't want to get rid of him for nothing. They kept holding on, and the phones weren't ringing. Nobody wanted him. Broncos finally give him a call, this being the Jets. They make the deal because Sean Payne can't help himself. He loves collecting quarterbacks. It doesn't make any sense that Zach Wilson was on this team knowing that they were going to take Bo Nix. But, in best laid plans, right? What if you get jumped by a team you didn't expect? Whatever. Now he's surplus to requirements. So there's still no market for him. Nothing that Sean Payton has done, I don't think, has swayed other NFL teams. So Sean Payton's just trying his hardest to drum up demand, which I don't think there is. We'll see what happens on Sunday. You don't ever root for injuries, but if something were to happen this weekend, then perhaps maybe the Broncos will get their wish and somebody will call them up looking to take Zach Wilson off their hands. But this will be the Zach Wilson show on Sunday. Plan your television viewing accordingly. They will try one last effort to get somebody to buy into Zach Wilson, and they will go into the year with Bo Nix as the one, Jared Stidham as the backup, and then Zach Wilson either is or is not on this roster. 719-247-1313. Just getting going on this Friday edition of the show. More conversation regarding the Broncos preseason finale. They do have a chance to go unbeaten in the preseason. Does that matter? Our friends at the Dan Patrick Show have done a little legwork in that regard. So we'll talk about that. Coming up next, though, more on this special teams coordinator that likes to use his holiday to go over to the Middle East to try and raise NIL money. And another, I won't want to say twist because I think it was inevitably heading this direction, but regarding one member of the Denver media when it comes to Deion Sanders. That's next. This is Drive Time Sports live from Circa Resort in Las Vegas on Extra Sports 1300. Celebrate Cyan Night with your Colorado Springs Switchbacks tomorrow night, August 24th. You want to be at Widener Field at 6 as the first 2,000 fans through the gates will get a special edition Switchbacks clear bag provided by Widener Apartment Homes. Then after the Switchbacks take on New Mexico United, stick around for an awesome fireworks display. Get your tickets to this and any one of the remaining matches in the Switchback season at switchbacksfc.com. CU, or the Denver Post, I should say, where this is coming from. The Denver Post has printed a story today that their sports columnist, Sean Keeler, is no longer able to ask Deion Sanders questions. Just to catch you up, this stems from the press conference that was done a couple of weeks ago where Sean Keeler, who has been critical of Deion Sanders since he arrived in Boulder, tried to ask a question, and Deion Sanders challenged him and basically asked him, why are you the way that you are? And accused him of not liking him. And why do you keep coming up here if you clearly don't like our program? And they went back and forth. And the next time Sean Keeler asked a question, it was of Warren Sapp, the defensive line coach. He was shut down. They next questioned. Well, now CU has said Sean Keeler's not going to ask any more questions. And they are calling it a series of sustained personal attacks, including phrases that Keeler has written about Deion Sanders, including false prophet, deposition, Deion, Planet Prime, Bruce Lee of BS, the Deion Kool-Aid, and circus. Some of those are better than others. So the thing about this is that Keeler will still be allowed to go to CU press conferences. He will still be allowed to cover games. So is it a big deal that he can no longer ask questions of Deion Sanders? Not in the micro view. Right? Do you care that Sean Keeler doesn't get asked questions of Deion Sanders? Do you care who asks questions of Deion Sanders at any press conference? Do you care if I do? If I was told the same thing from CU, would you care? Because I don't think you should. Right? I don't think that you should. It's not, but it's about the bigger picture here. And the bigger picture is it's not the fact that Sean Keeler cannot ask questions of Deion Sanders. It's that this is something that is agreed upon in Deion Sanders' contract. The Denver Post is reporting that there is a clause in Deion Sanders' contract, which means that he only has to answer questions from mutually agreed upon media outlets and personalities. It is built into his contract that he doesn't have to field questions from everyone, which is not something that is normal. It's not normal to have in black and white, I essentially get to choose who I do interviews with, who I interact with, who I answer questions from in a press conference. Deion Sanders has that written in black and white in his contract. And that is something that not many coaches have. I don't think it's a good thing to have it in the contract. I think it shows that Deion Sanders wants to control the narrative. And if what was going on within his program, or he believed what he was going to put into his program at CU would be beyond questioning, then he wouldn't need this. This to me feels like an out in case things go awry and people start criticizing me or people start questioning my decisions. Do you think Deion Sanders would have this if he were to get the deal, a deal at an SEC school? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Deion could have only gotten such a deal from CU. And it speaks to how desperate CU was to land Deion Sanders. I don't think this is a great look, all in all. Forget who the writer is, forget what the outlet is. Just the idea that you are shutting down critical members of the media makes it seem like you are not, that you're not up to the challenge. You know, that's part of it. Go ask Dabo Swinney how ugly it can get in those Clemson. He answers telephone calls on his own coach's show, and listeners proceed to rip him. You remember there was the famous, there was a notable clip in which Dabo went just in on one of the callers to his coach's show. And it was, people loved it. Coach is defending himself. Coach is standing up. And Deion Sanders is saying, I don't have to talk to anybody. I don't want to. And who are the people that he's not going to want to talk to? The people that are being critical of him. It makes it look like Deion Sanders wanted to just make sure that all of the press, all of the PR coming out of his tenure at CU was as glowing and as positive as it could be. And you wonder if the end game here is Deion Sanders moving on to one of the big two, SEC Big Ten. If he's going to be able to handle everything that comes along with that. Because we have very good reporters, very good media members in this state, right? Or not in this state. I don't know for sure in this state. I'm in Nevada. But in Colorado, there are a lot of really good reporters and a lot of really good television personalities and a lot of really good media people, just in general. They are not as combative, as critical as media members in the SEC. Not even close. You've heard of Paul Feinbaum, yes? That everybody in that part of the country is a mini Paul Feinbaum. And I don't mean that to disparage. I'm just saying, like, they get on their teams. Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, LSU. They don't hold back. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. If something's not going well or the coach does something that they disagree with, they're going to say it. And they may even confront the coach about it. There's no way that he would be able to get this clause in at a SEC school or a Big Ten school. There's no way. It shows, got a text from the 719, Dion's thin skin. It does appear that way. Even if he's not, it appears that he is. It looks like he's trying to control the narrative, and he's not willing to answer the difficult questions. And I'm not even like, this was in place before this whole Sean Keeler thing happened. Okay, this is not a new thing. This was built into his contract when he chose to come to Boulder. So he didn't even know that any of this was going to happen, and he had it built in. Right? So you have the YouTube channel. So you have a lot of people in the media that go to games in Boulder that cover this team that you could label as sycophants or fanboys. And when you insulate yourself and surround yourself with only those types of media members, I think your skin gets thinner. You have less patience, less, you don't want to hear that kind of stuff. It makes it harder to hear that kind of stuff, that somebody would be critical, somebody would question you. But here's the bottom line with this. With everything that, as Sean Keeler calls it, a circus with Deion Sanders. The bottom line here is, if he wins, people will not care about this. If Deion Sanders wins in Boulder, no one will care if he answers any questions from the media. Right? But when you are stepping up onto a bigger stage from where you were, CU is a light years from Jackson State. I'm not talking about competitiveness. I'm talking about the level of college football. Light years away from Jackson State. When you are stepping onto that stage for the first time and you have proven very little in your coaching career, you should not have these clauses in your contract. And you should go in there looking to earn everybody's trust. The media, the fans, the administration. And if you're losing, you should be able to answer the difficult questions. You should be able to defend your position. So this is file this under, if Deion wins, not at nearly as big of a deal. Deion hasn't won. He has won nothing. He has done nothing to really earn such a clause in his contract. He's done nothing to earn the right to exercise it other than the legalese in his contract. The idea that he's beyond reproach is not correct. A lot of this other stuff, and I'll tie this into the special teams coordinator that took a holiday trip to Saudi Arabia. Will not be a big deal, will not be a reason for criticism if Deion Sanders wins. If Deion Sanders wins, a lot of the criticism goes away. But he hasn't won. He hasn't won. And all this stuff is happening. And with all of this stuff going on, he better win. And I'm not even talking about this year. I'm just talking about in Boulder. He better win. Because do you think that a Power 5 or a Power 2 school is going to look at Deion Sanders, who had who's combative with the media, who had a clause in his contract saying he will only speak to certain the media members that he chooses, and won 4 games and 5 games and 5 games. There's no way. And all the bigger schools, they see all this. And they'll run it through their own filter on, do we care about this? Is this a big deal? Is this not? He better win. I don't know that he's playing with house money anymore. And it will be up to each different person, media outlet on what winning looks like. For me, it's a bowl game. They must, CU has to go to the bowl game this year. For other people, it's loftier expectations. Seven 719-24-7-1313. Take your thoughts on this. Again, it's not about any one particular media member. Your experience as a consumer of Colorado football information will not be affected by Sean Keeler's inability to ask questions and the fact he's still able. They're not censoring him necessarily. They're not telling him he can't write things. They're not telling him he can't come to the games. They're just telling him that you're not going to ask questions in the post-game press conferences today. I don't know that that's a big deal, but it's another part of the bigger picture here, which is Deion Sanders trying to control a narrative that is getting picked apart on a daily basis because he is not winning. 719-24-7-1313. More from Circa Resort in Vegas after this on Extra Sports 1300. Drive Time Sports live from Circa Resort in Las Vegas, downtown Las Vegas. Had a lot of fun last night. Went to the D that is down the street here on Fremont Street from Circus Sports and caught up with some people in the industry that I know. So that was a lot of fun last night. And tonight, more activities planned. I went to the pool today. Just trying to help out the white balance thing with my camera. Yesterday, if you didn't hear, I was having an issue because I don't know how any of this stuff works. I just plug it in and point it at my face and hope for the best. So I said, you know what I can do? Because I can't really fix the camera. I've fiddled with it to no avail. So I thought, you know what? I'll lay by the pool and I'll fix it that way. Get a little tan. Clearly, if you're watching on our social media platforms, it works superbly. You barely recognize me. Or it had little to no impact and I had to get out of there because I felt my skin burning. But awesome. The stadium swim is what they have here. Is a giant. I was watching the BMW up on the giant screen that they have, and they have more than one screen out there, so you could stand in their pool, swim in the pool, and look up and be watching a game or watch a sports show or whatever it might be. Just awesome. Just one of the things that sets Circa Resort apart from a lot of other establishments in the great city of Las Vegas. And trust me, I've been to a lot of them, the vast majority of them. And this is quickly becoming my favorite spot here in Las Vegas. Let's take a couple of your texts here. 719-247-1313 on the Colorado football program informing the Denver Post that their columnist, Sean Keeler, will no longer be allowed to ask questions of Deion Sanders in press conferences. From the 719, a liberal run and liberal mindset at CU wanting to start censorship of the media. Wow, I am so shocked. Okay. Steve G says, Ryan, it would be different if Sanders was posting a great win-loss record, but he comes in and tells all the players to transfer and then brings in his players, kills the program to good players who want to play at CU. And then Tom says, I disagree with you about Sean Keeler. I understand he is part of the media and you guys will always back each other, but this guy has always been negative about Deion and the program, including calling the coach names like the Bruce Lee of BS. He has the right to write whatever he wants, but Deion and CU have the right to ban him or not answer his questions. Let me start with that. I'm with you. I'm with you on that part of it. As long as I think the over the line action from CU would be he can't come to our games anymore. That's when I really have a problem. I don't have an issue with what CU did based on what Deion Sanders has in his contract. My bigger issue is that is in Deion Sanders' contract. And what that says about controlling the narrative. It's fine if they don't want to answer questions. I've been to many press conferences where it's like we have a certain order of events here, and if we don't get to you, then we don't get to you. And it's like, you know what? That's their prerogative. What I think is a more troubling thing is if they say you're not even allowed to show up to our games anymore. So this is bigger than the Sean Keeler thing. It's not even really about him. So I agree with you there, Tom. Your second part says you continue to say Deion hasn't won anything, but he took the absolute worst team in the nation, led them to 4 wins. To me, that's a successful first season. Um, that it was a successful first season, but was that the end game? And 4 wins really isn't winning anything. When you think of winning something, they didn't even get to a bowl game. Beating CSU is not in Nebraska. I know for CU fans, they really love that, but really look at it in the grand scheme of things. Would you really say that Deion won anything year one? It was a good first year. It was a good first step. But this thing that is in his contract is not commensurate with his accomplishment at the college football level. But we know that CU didn't necessarily hire him just because of his acumen as a football coach, right? There's so many other things that go into hiring Deion Sanders. He hasn't won anything. If that's what Deion Sanders ultimately accomplishes, he got the most relevant and arguably worst team in college football to win 4 games. Do you think he's going to be voted into the College Football Hall of Fame as a head coach for that? I'm sorry. You can say last year was successful. You could look at it and say, you know what? It was a good first season. Okay. But it's 4 wins. That's not success. Okay. You're looking at 1 year. Do you think 1 year means that based on what he did in that 1 year, do you think that Deion Sanders should be in the place where he shouldn't have to answer questions from people he doesn't want to? That he is beyond reproach, that he is beyond questioning? He has made CU he relevant in terms of the news cycle. He has not made them relevant in terms of the college football playoff, in terms of the Pac-12. There's so many layers to this. I'm with you. He took a positive first step. And what I am saying is all of this stuff that has come out between the end of not even the end of last season. Let's just take it from the 3-0 start until now has chipped away at it. And now the expectations are higher. Don't tell me your expectations are not higher. If you were talking about another coach and he wasn't at CU, winning 4 games, would you characterize that as winning anything? No. He's won the get college game day to show up on your campus more than anybody else. He's won what you're hoping he's going to win at CU. So that's when I say he hasn't won anything. And there are coaches like Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Dabo Swinney who have accomplished much more than Deion Sanders, who still sit there and answer questions from the media. Some of it might be critical. The treatment that he gets, the conversation around him is probably not commensurate with the level of accomplishment. That's the point I am making. I like Deion Sanders. I think he will win something while he is at CU. But along the way, he can make missteps. He can look bad. It's possible. I do still think I'm not out on Deion Sanders winning in Boulder, but he hasn't won in Boulder yet. 4 wins it's a successful year one, but it's not what they brought him in to do. I'm sorry. He didn't even win as much as he was supposed to after the 3-0 start. No, he hasn't won anything yet. But yet, he could win. And I still think that he can. But along the way, there are some things that I don't love. 719-247-1313. We'll continue that conversation in just a little bit. Right now, I have a special guest sitting down here in the last few minutes we have this hour, and we're certainly appreciative because he might be the busiest man in all of Las Vegas. He's the VP of operations for Circa Resort and Golden Gate Casinos and the D, which I was able to go to last night. Fantastic venue. Mike Paul, my guest. Mike, pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much. No, Derek's busier than I am. I mean, I might be the busiest specifically related to some of these events, but he's got 10 other things going on that I don't. So I could never claim that title. But it is one of the busiest weekends of the year for me.
And how much credit do I give you for the Circa Million, Circa Survivor?
Well, I'll tell you this. When we first started this out 6 years ago, I was the one that pushed Derek not to have a rake. I thought we had to distinguish ourselves from Westgate, and then really hammer Jay Cornegay about his 8% for a few years until he would text Derek, make Mike Palm shut up about the 8% until they took it away. So that and the quarterly payouts in the millions really helped the millions take off. The Survivor's just such a cool contest. Mm-hmm. I mean, it sells itself. It's like a lottery ticket, but it's so simple. Just pick one winner a week. So, I mean, we're proud. I mean, did you say, well, I take the blame when we fall short for the third straight year, the $6 million? I'll probably get the blame on that too, because
I wouldn't even think of it.
There'll be an overlay there again. Derek will have to kick some bucks in, but we're really happy. It's a great marketing tool for us. Everybody's got to come to Nevada to register and then play with your proxy. But the whole bet is you're going to come to Circa and fall in love with it, and we'll get a custom product.
Well, and look, speaking of which, we're out in Colorado. Circa Sportsbook is available to download right now. And as you mentioned, you're not going to get better odds at any other book than at Circa. And I've noticed that, it's not the same. And you guys have really differentiated yourself in that way.
It really stood out to me when we opened up in Illinois last October. And we went out for about a week, did the media tours and all that around Illinois. And I opened my phone. It was the first day of the baseball wildcard playoffs. So the opening game was the Rangers at Tampa Bay. And there were 9. We made the 9th sports book in Illinois at the time. And so, I have a screen. I can pull up everybody. Mm-hmm. And I looked. Out of the 9 sports books, the best odds on the Rangers were at Circa. And then I looked out of the 9 sports book, the best odds on the Rays were Circa. I said, holy cow. I mean, because that's our model, is a lower hold model. Right. But to be... lines are going to vary from book to book, but to be the best of 9 for both teams. And then I just had our friend from Kentucky from the Lexington station say, I'm betting baseball in almost every game. It's the best on either time. Of course, they're big Reds fans there, right? Mm-hmm. If you want to bet the Reds games, if you like the Reds, bet Circa. If you like their opponent, bet Circa, because it's the best odds. So we're proud of that. Golf is probably our best thing that we do. The lowest takeout by, we're taking out a third of what most other major books take out in golf. If you're betting golf, you really should bet with us. I wouldn't say that we're going to be the best in class in everything, but golf, we definitely are. And the futures, if you like betting futures, you can parlay different sports together, and our takeout on futures is lower than most. So I think those are the things that we really specialize in terms of hold percentage.
And what Mike just said is resonates because we have the BMW going on right now in our backyard in Colorado at Castle Pines. So my guest. So you still doing stuff with VSiN and getting on the air? And
so, I mean, we're going to have a big new schedule, right? Bill and Brian bought the company back, and Steve Cohen has come in to really run it. And so there'll be a new lineup after Labor Day. We're still not sure of all the moving parts. Right now, I'm still hosting Lombardi line on Fridays and Saturdays, and then doing about 4 guest spots, my regular spots on Lombardi on Thursday, Follow the Money on Thursday, and with Patrick and Dustin on Sharp Money on Wednesday. Who knows now? Usually every 6 months they mix it up. So I'll find out sometime mid next week what the new schedule will be. But I assume I'll be some part of it.
People in Colorado, as you might expect, are pretty high on Bo Nix being named the starter the other day. Doesn't seem like it's moved you folks here at in terms of the Broncos odds and they're over. You guys still have their over under at 5.5, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure why the Raiders are 6.5 and Denver's 5.5. In my mind, it should be the same. What has moved is Bo Nix for offensive rookie of the year, though. Mm-hmm. He was sitting around 14, 15 to 1. He's less than 10 to 1. So he's the 4th choice. Obviously, Caleb Williams is the favorite at plus 180, and then Jaden Daniels, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. as a receiver with Arizona is. But it's not worth it. It's not. I think the guys from Denver asked me yesterday about what would be the best bet on the Broncos. I think that Nix it's still at plus 980 as offensive. Mm-hmm. It's worth a shot because I think it will be a 2-horse race with he and Caleb. I'm not sure Jaden Daniels can stay healthy with that offensive line for 17 games. And you know darn well Sean Payton is going to play him every snap as long as Nix is healthy, right? He's going to prove a point. This was his guy. He's the best quarterback in the draft. So he's going to get every opportunity to show it. So that would be the way I would approach it.
Yeah. When in regards to Caleb Williams coming in with so much hype, he could rival, a lot of young quarterbacks throughout history in terms of the amount of hype. When it comes to his odds of winning with everything Chicago has surrounded him with, does he come in with your knowledge of years past as one of the more prohibitive Rookie of the Year favorites, or no?
Yeah. The last time a Rookie of the Year, offensive Rookie of the Year was this short was Trevor Lawrence with all the high expectations. Now, looking back, he just signed a $250 million deal, but his career is considered a bust so far, really. But it has to do with expectations. Everything's about expectations. Here's the thing about Caleb Williams. We never saw him play within structure at USC. It was so freewheeling. Can he play within structure? If he can play within structure with the Bears, I think he'll do well. Like you said, they've surrounded him with so many weapons.
Yeah.
And the defense is a good defense. They're the top 5 run defense. So he'll have a lot of opportunities to succeed. But he's up against all the hype and having to play within structure. If he can do that, he'll probably win. But what happens if he doesn't? At USC, he didn't speak to the media if they lost. He was so coddled, right? You have the picture of him in the $20,000 a month apartment and the yellow fingernails and all that, right? So there's some question marks on the intangible side of it. But I know the Bears fans are over the moon. I watched not last night, but the week 2 preseason game at Soldier Field last Saturday. They're like it's the playoffs. You're going nuts at Soldier Field.
What have you put out your Super Bowl exacta yet?
So no exacta. I've only made I bet the Bengals, and now I hear conflicting reports about how Burrow looks off the injury with how the ball's coming off his hand. But look, I think that's a great division, obviously, again. But I think every team has challenges there. I'm anti-Baltimore because I think they lost so much. You lose your defensive coordinator, and you lose several key starters. Now, they got guys that can fill in, but they never had the number 1 role before. You lose in the worst way possible in the AFC Championship game, totally abandoning your identity and going nuts, down 7 points, throwing the ball every down. It was just such a bad way to go out. And here's the other thing. Nobody's talking about this, but take a look at Justin Tucker's stats. He's the best kicker in the game, maybe the best kicker of all time. It's 3 straight years of decline for him in field goals accuracy and 3 straight years of rapid decline in field goals over 50 yards. Maybe he's coming to that point. Kickers, when they go, they go. And you count him as a very valuable weapon through their run here.
Absolutely.
He might be. Now, so there's the challenges there. Pittsburgh, do they really have a quarterback? I don't know. I don't think Russell Wilson will ever be at the level of a winning NFL quarterback again. Fields experiment didn't work in Chicago. I'm not sure it can work there. And then their schedule, the back half is just ludicrous.
Oh, it's
All
brutal.
8 division games and then 2 other division champs from outside. I mean, it's terrible. And then you look at Cleveland
Yeah.
and look, Stefanski doesn't want to play Watson, but he's forced to because the front office runs that team. I still think they have quarterback issues, and nobody can explain to me the road home splits on defense. They were so awful. The best team in the league on at home, one of the worst 5, and you saw it in the playoff game in Houston. They got run out of there. Nobody can explain that to me why it was so. So I have question marks, and I made money with Cleveland last year because I bet them over their win total to make the playoffs. But boy, I had a lot of questions at the end of the year. So it's kind of a default. I think Cincy can win the division. Maybe they can get the 2 seed. It looks to me like Kansas City. Just pencil them in for the 1, and we'll see where we go from there, right?
Right.
But the only team that's been able to beat Kansas City in the last 5 years was Cincinnati. So that was mine. On the NFC side of it, I'm high on Packers and Lions. That's tough. They're in the same division.
I'm high on the Packers as well, so I feel good about that.
Better odds for the Packers than the Lions, but I think one of those 2 teams will represent the NFC.
Mine Palm, it is a pleasure, sir. Thank you for joining me, and look forward to the next time. This is my spot now. You guys aren't going to be able to get rid of me. So.
Well, thank you for having me on, and thanks to all your listeners, and hope you guys can make a trip out here and discover Circa and join one of our contests.
Yeah, download the app while you're at it. Mine Palm, appreciate you.
Thank you.
You bet. We'll take a break, have more Drive Time Sports live from Circa Resort next on Extra Sports 1300. Oh, we could move these spots. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on this Friday. Ryan Kaufman coming to you live at Circa Resort in Vegas. Our format a little bit off today, but hey, when Mike Palm is available, you take him when he is available because that dude is in high demand around here and great insight into the Broncos and some of the other NFL bets that you may be looking to make this upcoming season. We'll get back into the Dion discussion. 719-24-7, 1313. So the Broncos will not play Bo Nix on Sunday, which I think is the correct call. They will play Jared Stidham 8 to 12 plays, and then it will be the Zach Wilson show as they continue to show him off and try to get somebody to take him off of their hands. And look, that's the plan here. It's abundantly clear, and it's bordering on obvious, that Sean Payton thinks that Bo Nix is his best quarterback, that Jared Stidham is what he wants in a backup quarterback, and then there's Zach. Normally, when a team takes three quarterbacks, there's some kind of value or uniqueness that quarterback brings. I'll give you for example, in the NFL. Right now, there's another team that is looking to potentially carry three quarterbacks. That team is the Tennessee Titans. Their third quarterback is Malik Willis. Remember Malik Willis from Liberty? And it's not because Malik Willis is great. It's not because they couldn't bear the thought of losing Malik Willis. It's that Malik Willis is young. Excuse me. He's young and he's athletic. And you think about a team that resides in the same conference as Lamar Jackson, as Patrick Mahomes, some of these more athletic, Josh Allen, some of these more athletic quarterbacks. Having Malik Willis on your roster allows you to maybe simulate some of the things that those quarterbacks are going to do with him in practice. Right? And there's this feeling of, well, we drafted him. We might as well see at least his first contract all the way through and then reassess. Normally, if you're going to take a third quarterback, that third quarterback would need to check as many of the following boxes as he can. Young, different skill set, high dollar, high dollar amount if you were to cut him. Like, Zach Wilson fits none of those things. The Broncos are out $2.5 million if they cut him. Zach Wilson isn't young anymore. He's on his second team. And Zach Wilson does not bring anything unique to the table that you already don't have with Bo Nix and Jared Stidham. So Zach Wilson doesn't fit the mold of what I would expect a third quarterback on a roster, however rare that might be. He doesn't fit it. He's not Taysom Hill. So it would be weird if they kept Zach Wilson on the roster because he doesn't bring anything that you don't already have with your quarterback group. He doesn't bring you a unique skill set that you can practice against to get prepared for Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. So why keep 3? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it would be the worst move ever if Sean Payton kept 3 quarterbacks at the expense of an extra defensive lineman. I'm not sitting here pointing at the guy that could get cut if the Broncos end up carrying 3 quarterbacks and saying this cannot happen. But there's a reason why teams don't do it. Right? You can only play 1 quarterback at a time. If you're on to your 3rd quarterback, chances are your season's down the toilet anyway. It wouldn't make a lot of sense to me to keep 3. But one thing I do also know about Sean Payton is he is quite stubborn. So if he believes in his heart of hearts that one day the Denver Broncos will be able to trade Zach Wilson and save his contract against the cap, 1, maybe that's more of a George Payton consideration, but also Sean Payton being able to pat himself on the back a bit and say, like he is with Pittsburgh. You don't think that Sean Payton gets some level of joy out of the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers decided to sign Russell Wilson? Most people look at it like, well, the Steelers are signing him for nothing. And Sean Payton's like, somebody's signing him at all. I said that this guy is not good enough to play for me, but because of what I was able to get him to do last year, at least one other team wanted him. You don't think some of that is in play here with Zach Wilson? I think it absolutely is. Sean Payton has talked about finding the right 53. So Sean Payton is he's not going to take Zach Wilson over a player that he really believes can help the Denver Broncos win. His ego is not that much out of control. But if we're talking about a 3rd quarterback over a 7th defensive lineman, then yeah, maybe Sean Payton would keep Zach Wilson around to make a point. I would not put it past him. But that's not the goal here. That's not the number 1 priority. The number 1 priority is get Zach Wilson to play as well as he possibly can on Sunday, and for someone across the NFL's 31 other teams to say, you know what? Why not? He looked pretty good with Sean Payton. Maybe it just was the Jets that messed him up because Sean Payton made him look pretty good. That's what the Broncos are hoping. That's plan A. Plan B could be the Denver Broncos carrying 3 quarterbacks. It would be rare. It would be a bit odd. To me, it would be unnecessary, but I also didn't spend the last 2 weeks trying to drum up interest for Zach Wilson and put myself out there saying Zach Wilson and all this stuff, Sean Payton. I don't have the stake in it that Sean Payton does. So we'll see first and foremost how Zach Wilson plays. And then we'll see what the Broncos ultimately decide to do. To me, if you can't beat out Jared Stidham, then just cut him. There's got to be somebody else that can help you. We hear Sean Payton talk about it all the time. You're not just competing against the other guys on this roster. You're competing against every team's roster. Surely there is somebody between the Broncos and every other team in the NFL that Sean Payton will look at and say, you know what, that guy can help us a bit more than Zach Wilson, right? Special teams. There's got to be somebody. We'll find out who that is. For now, it's politicking. For now, it's the hard sell. For now, it's propping up Zach Wilson and making him look as good as you possibly can on Sunday. But no Bo Nix. So that will be Zach Wilson versus Stidham will be the extent of your quarterback viewing for the Denver Broncos. Couple of other areas real quick that I want to get into. The cornerback position is going to be interesting because if Riley Moss does have this starting job sewn up, all of a sudden the guy that was starting for the Denver Broncos 1 year ago opposite Pat Surtain could be on the way out. Because it's a numbers game, and you look at some of the corners that the Broncos have. And of course, I'm talking about Damari Mathis being the incumbent starter. So if he gets beat out by Riley Moss, now you look at a veteran in Levi Wallace, who is cheaper, but who the Broncos chose to bring in. You have Tremon Smith, who the Broncos would save more money if they cut him, but he plays on special teams. And then you have Chris Abrams Drain, who is a recent draft pick. All of a sudden, the guy that was starting opposite Pat Surtain could be completely out of a job in Denver. I wouldn't say it's a foregone conclusion for Damari Mathis, but we haven't talked a lot about him, and that's not a good thing. So we'll see how the cornerback room shakes out. And then I know this is at the top of your list. You're like, Ryan, why didn't you lead with this? Punter. Trenton Gill versus Riley Dixon. That competition comes to an end on Sunday. Important things to remember. Trenton Gill, cheaper than Riley Dixon. But remember what happened with the Broncos kicking situation last year. This may be a position where Sean Payton is looking across the NFL for an outside hire. But if it's about saving money, Trenton Gill makes about $1 million plus fewer dollars than Riley Dixon does. So that's what I got for Sunday. Your interest level in Sunday, by the way, just because I'm here and very cognizant of where Circa has things, most every sports book that I have seen has it Broncos minus 3.5. Circa, Broncos minus 4.5. So make your bets accordingly. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the Broncos' final preseason game. Another NFL story that I want to get to coming up next is how they have altered the eligibility and the way they go about selecting coaches and contributors and how that might impact one Mike Shanahan. That is next on Extra Sports 1300. Today is the day that the Colorado State Fair and Rodeo begins in Pueblo. Free attractions, a carnival, concerts, all the concerts. So many good ones. The Spinners and the Commodores, Ludacris, Trace Atkins, the Goo Goo Dolls, and more. It's fun for the whole family in Pueblo right now through September 2nd. Get your tickets and plan your visit at coloradostatefair.com. Drive Time Sports live from Circa Resort in Las Vegas. Some news out of the, out of the NFL, I guess, but it is the Pro Football Hall of Fame, so I'll call it football, out of football today. And it sent some people into a little bit of a panic because the initial headline was that the Pro Football Hall of Fame is decreasing the window of eligibility, or the consideration period, I should say. Normally, you got to wait X number of years. They're going to lower it to 1. Now, they are doing that. That's a real thing. But perhaps some people that are eagerly awaiting Mike Shanahan's call from Canton got a little defensive because they thought, oh, the rules are being bent to allow Bill Belichick to get immediately in, and that would come at the expense of Mike Shanahan. I want to assure you that if Mike Shanahan is the front runner to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this next year, he will have no issues with that for two reasons. One, you have to be retired for an entire year, which Bill Belichick would not. He would not have been retired for a full NFL season. And second, isn't Bill Belichick coming back to coach? He's coming back next year, yeah? So I know Bill Belichick is the one that ever, is being the picture on all the articles. He's coming back. By the time he is eligible, even under the new rules, he will be on an NFL sideline. Unless he just decides for whatever reason that he's really done. But I never got that sense. He gave it the shot with Atlanta. Atlanta said thanks, but no thanks. And the ideal was he would go the route of so many other coaches and sit out a year, do some television, and then get back in there. So I get when you think of NFL head coaches and you think about, if this were a rule about quarterbacks, then I think Tom Brady's face would be prominently featured on the article. But Bill Belichick's not even really in this conversation for a couple of reasons. So Mike Shanahan can still be voted in. Now, so now that we got that figured out, that Bill Belichick is not eligible, nor is he legitimately retired from the NFL, why are they doing this? And I look at the two changes that they have made. Because my initial thing is, I kind of like the waiting period because it's designed to keep us from being a prisoner of the moment. Right? To kind of really think about somebody's legacy and have some distance here. A year doesn't feel like enough to consider someone's Hall of Fame candidacy. Is 5 years, is 8 years too much? It might be. I feel like 1 year is too soon. So I read the headline. I'm like, I don't know that I like that. But they made another move today, which is separating coaches and contributors. Usually it was everybody was in the same bucket, Whether you were Al Michaels or Paul Tagliabue or Mike Shanahan, you're all in the same boat. You're a coach / contributor. Now, I do like on its own the fact that they're splitting those up because coaches have a far greater impact on winning than a broadcaster or a commissioner. And I think even more so than a general manager or another front office or a owner, right? So I think they should have their own category and not be lumped in with the contributors. I think what all this is pointing to is we're about to have quite the logjam when it comes to coaches. So right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, there are 5 coaches right now who some segment of the population or another has said is Hall of Fame worthy. You can rank these however you see fit, and maybe we will before the show is over. But you have Mike Shanahan, you have Tom Coughlin, you have Marty Schottenheimer, you have Mike Holmgren, and you have Dan Reeves. 5 coaches that I have heard plenty on their behalf on why they should be Hall of Famers. Just for the record, Mike Shanahan to me is at the top of that list. None of these other guys are more worthy of the Hall of Fame than Mike Shanahan, but that doesn't mean Tom Coughlin, Marty Schottenheimer, Mike Holmgren, and Dan Reeves aren't Hall of Famers. So you have 5 guys right now who are waiting in line. And while I do think Bill Belichick is coming back to the NFL next year, he is not going to be back in the NFL for very long. And you have Bill Belichick and you have Andy Reid that within the relatively near future will both be Hall of Fame eligible. So I actually don't think that this rule change is necessarily based on Bill Belichick as much as it's the guys in line currently. Because once Belichick is eligible, that might mean the end of the Hall of Fame candidacy of whoever doesn't get voted in before he does. Whether it be Shanahan, Coughlin, Schottenheimer, Holmgren, Reeves, that might be a wrap. Because now you're going to add in Andy Reid. And then you're going to have other coaches who I don't think any of them right now are Hall of Famers, but we'll see where their career turns out. Mike Tomlin, Sean Payton, Pete Carroll, I think he's done. But Pete Carroll will be up for consideration, and there will be some people who say that Pete Carroll is a Hall of Famer. I would disagree with that. So I look at these 2 changes, and I think they're both geared towards we gotta get these coaches in here. And I don't think that the Hall of Fame loves to do posthumous Hall of Fame inductions. So I kind of look at this, and they say they always try to optimize their voting and their selection process, and I can understand that you do that. But splitting the coach and the contributors, now no contributors will cost the coach. You move up the timeline. Maybe moving up the timeline is a little Belichick related. Maybe they have Belichick in mind to an extent, but I think more than anything else, they see the line forming, and they're like, we got some coaches that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, and we're doing this one guy at a time, and maybe we don't need to do that. Maybe we could separate him from the contributors. Maybe we'll make eligibility or the waiting period. I keep saying eligibility. The waiting period, we'll move that up. I feel like they're looking to clear out a bit of a logjam when it comes to NFL coaches who are waiting to get enshrined into Canton. One year out of the business feels aggressive. I mean, can we get to 3 years? Can everybody agree on 3 years to wait, 4 years to wait? But I do very much like the separation of coaches and contributors. There are some coaches who are contributors. There are very few to zero contributors who are head coaches. John Madden, I suppose, would be one. But you get my point. They should be separated. Coaches have an active day-to-day influence on the wins and losses of their team. To have them bunched in with a group that includes commissioners, owners, general managers, broadcasters, it doesn't make any sense. So I think that's the most positive change that the Pro Football Hall of Fame made today. Take your thoughts on it. 719 24/7 1313 Drive Time Sports, live from Circa Resort in Vegas. Next on Extra Sports 1300. live at Circa Resort and Casino in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. Brian Kaufman with you here back in the Springs on Monday. Actually, back in the Springs tomorrow because I have a Switchbacks match to call alongside my broadcast partner and friend, Roland Vargas. One-way friend. I consider him a friend of mine. He doesn't consider me a friend of his. I just saw this from Ross Dellinger. He is reporting that UConn and the Big 12 are in, quote, serious negotiations about the Huskies joining as an expansion member. Get this, in all sports except for football. All sports except for football. Potentially going to the Big 12. So that's a little interesting that it's everything but football. But and Dellinger does add that they have, he calls it a runway. Like UConn will be able to earn membership within the Big 12 in football a little bit later on. So essentially what he's saying is they want UConn, but they're giving football more time, right? Perhaps because of other moves. But when all of this, shifting of the tectonic plates in college athletics happened, we look at everything through the lens of college football, and rightly so. But Brett Yormark is a basketball guy. He is. He's a basketball guy. So you look at some of the additions that the Big 12 has made. We all look at it through football, football, football. But Brett Yormark wants to create the best college basketball conference in America and have it be without question the best. He might already be there, and he's just going to further it by keeping UConn in there. Because I know what you're thinking. No, I do not expect Dan Hurley to be coaching the UConn Huskies as they necessarily make their way into the Big 12. I do think his flirtation with the Lakers was laying the groundwork for, hey, I want to go to the NBA. Hit that three-peat right off into the sunset, become an NBA head coach in a better spot than LA. But we've seen this movie from UConn, right? Calhoun to Ollie to Hurley. UConn will land on their feet. They may never replicate what Dan Hurley has brought to that school, but I wouldn't count out UConn from winning another national championship. UConn wasn't even a thing, and then Jim Calhoun got there. And then everyone thought UConn hoops were going to be done for. And then they won a national title with Kevin Ollie. And now they're back-to-back reigning national champions with Dan Hurley. It may never be this good again, but UConn's going to be good. And adding them to the Big 12 conference would be a coup for Brett Yormark. I mean, think about the teams that you would have, the Blue Bloods that you would have, right? You'd have Kansas. You added Arizona. You're looking at adding UConn just right there. That's three of the most relevant college basketball programs of my life. Duke would be another one. Gonzaga would be another one. And who knows with Gonzaga, they might be next. But Brett Yormark already had one, arguably the best basketball conference in America. And then he added Arizona. And not for nothing, added CU as well. Tad Boyle, we know what he's done at Colorado, so they just don't have the history of Arizona. ASU, you add them, and now you're looking at UConn. Brett Yormark loves himself some hoops. And these moves are mainly, I think, geared towards basketball. And kind of looks even more apparent to be that way, considering that they want to move on to everything but football right now, and then football would be a little bit later on. So, and I think also part two of the football aspect of this is UConn football would not be a huge draw. So, perhaps they need to prove some things in the next few years before the Big 12 would fork over their, one of their TV shares to them and everything. But something to keep your eye on. It's not going away. We may not get, I think we're going to get one more. I was going to say we may not get a summer like last year again, but I do think we will. I just don't know how far that is down the road. We're going to get the final big tectonic shift of college athletics to where it's basically going to be the Big Ten and the SEC. But that may not be for quite a few years. But we'll get a trickle. We'll get a move here. We'll get a move there. And that's this one. And it's more than a trickle. This is a significant move if UConn were to go to the Big 12. That coming out from Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports Today. So interesting. Speaking of basketball, I don't know if you saw the on social media or anywhere else this ad that Netflix has for their latest sports doc endeavor. It is a picture of a Team USA jersey. Forgive me, I think it's LeBron's jersey, perhaps. Nikola Jokic's Serbian jersey, Victor Wembanyama's France jersey, all in a circle. And what it is they're going to have a documentary releasing next year in 2025 about Olympic basketball on the men's side. That will be their next endeavor. And I was thinking about that, and I'd watch that. I'd watch it for sure. And you think, especially now, given the way that played out, think about the number of, and I'm sure, I hate that this is what I am predisposed to, but I feel like it will be a very positive documentary. I don't think it's going to be one of those where you really get all the behind the scenes. I don't know that it's going to be. I think it'll be controlled. The narrative will be controlled a bit from the U.S., but still, though, I mean, you think about the way that tournament ended, right? Steph Curry hitting those 3-pointers in his first and only Olympic appearance. You think about Kevin Durant becoming the all-time leading scorer in USA basketball history. You think about the great story that Serbia was in that classic Olympic game between Serbia and the United States. And Netflix is billing it like they're chronicling everybody. Like, it's not just going to be following Team USA. That it's going to be following Serbia, and it's going to be following France, and it's going to be following, or I guess I should speak in the past tense. It followed. I'll say that would be more interesting to me than receiver as a premise, as a subject. I would like it a lot better. But you know the documentary we need coming out of the Olympics, the Australian breakdancer, Ray Gun. That's the Netflix documentary that we need to see. The people need to know once and for all how, why Ray Gun, how Ray Gun, how and why why were we forced to see what we saw? That's the Netflix documentary I want to see. Australian breakdancer Ray Gun. And if not that, then the men's basketball tournament would be pretty interesting too. They went with the latter. That's fine. So that's releasing in the year 2025, which is next year. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, we'll hit the three stories that are driving the show. Broncos with their plans for the preseason finale. Some more headline news today for the Colorado Buffaloes. Some headlines were made by the Switchbacks locally today. Want to get into that as well. And a change to the way the Hall of Fame does their business. So we'll reset with those, and I would love to get your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Drive Time Sports coming your way live from Circa Resort down on Fremont. If you're planning a trip here to Vegas, I would highly recommend. Enjoyed it very much here. So if you're planning a trip to Vegas, consider Circa Resort and Casino. It's been a lot of fun. 719-247-1313. Back with the three stories that are driving the show after this. Hello there. Welcome in Drive Time Sports Day 2, broadcasting live at Circa Resort and Casino on Fremont Street in Las Vegas. Ryan Kaufman with you, and thank you for tuning in, whether it's on your radio, online at extrasports1300.com, or whether it's on the Extra Sports 1300 app. And you can also watch on our social media platforms. Yes, even when I am on the road. It's not without its issues, but hey, it's staying, the stream is staying on. So that's the bare minimum, right? You can watch the show live on a daily basis on our social media platforms at XTRA Sports 1300. Let's start the hour as we tend to do with the wildly popular segment we like to call What's Driving the Show. All right, story number one. The headline is No Bo. Sean Payton announces today that Bo Nix will not play Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals in the Broncos preseason finale, and I think it's the right decision. Bo Nix has proven that he is superior to defenses comprised of second, third, and fourth string players. That is not the next step for Bo Nix. It is regular season snaps against first team defenses. Right now, preseason is always risk reward. The risk has gone far more up over the last couple of weeks for Bo Nix than it was to start the preseason, right? The reward was greater because you could see that Bo Nix, see if he's your quarterback, know that he's the right choice at quarterback, and to get him reps and to get him comfortable going and playing in games in the National Football League. He played 2 preseason games. That's enough. Now the risk reward swings the other way. And now could you imagine if Bo Nix were to even roll his ankle on Sunday? It would not be good. And I question how quality these reps are for Bo Nix, given what we have seen over the past 2 weeks. These reps are much better being spent on Zach Wilson as the Broncos continue to try and sell him to the 31 other teams. And that's really whose game Sunday is going to be. No Bo Nix, Jared Stidham, 8 to 12 plays, and then it's the Zach Wilson show as Sean Payton tries desperately to find a taker for Zach Wilson's services. This does not have to mean that Sean Payton is trying to get one over on everybody else. Okay, he's doing a hard sell. He's selling more than he probably should because it's like, dude, back off. It's Zach Wilson. We understand what he is. I think Sean Payton legitimately likes Zach Wilson and looks at him and says, you know what? I could probably do some really cool things offensively with him. Like I could win games with him. That's why they traded for him in the first place. But when you have Bo Nix and when you have Jared Stidham, you just don't need Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson does not bring anything to the table in terms of superior athleticism to be able to simulate playing a Lamar Jackson, or maybe he doesn't have great size, like trying to tackle Josh Allen. Like they're just, and he's not that young anymore. So there's just the reasons why you would keep a third quarterback on your roster. And Tennessee might do this. Tennessee might do this with Malik Willis. Well, Malik Willis is young. Malik Willis is athletic. So there are other ways to get value out of Malik Willis. Zach Wilson would literally just be sitting there. And it's not worth it. He's just surplus to requirements. And Sean Payton has gone a little bit above and beyond to try and convince somebody to take Zach Wilson off of their hands. But that could still mean he likes him. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to me why the Broncos would keep three quarterbacks. And I think Sean Payton knows that. But we'll see. Because he did say he has a good idea of how many quarterbacks he'll keep, and he feels good about the room. He may hang on to Zach Wilson, but trust me, it is still to try and trade him. That's the end game with Zach Wilson. Because if both Bo Nix and Jared Stidham get hurt, the Broncos season is probably down the tubes anyway. So it's not like you're going to save your season. But it will be the Zach Wilson show on. Oh, that wasn't good. Not great, Bob. I'm back. Kill it. Sorry about that. Somebody did not push the wrong button, pulled out the wrong cord, and the power to all of our power strips here at Radio Row at Circa Resort had no power going to them. And those of you who are watching the show live on our social media platforms, your viewing experience was not interrupted other than I stopped talking because I saw that the unit that I am connecting to the studio with went dead. But yeah, somebody pulled the wrong cord, but we are back up and ready to go. Before I was rudely interrupted finishing up. So story number 1 today on What's Driving This Show is the Broncos plan at quarterback. Story number 2 is the Pro Football Hall of Fame making a tweak, actually a bit more than a tweak, to their rules when it comes to coaches and contributors. They are separating the coach and contributor categories, which I think is the right call. Coaches deserve we deserve coaches deserve a representative every year in Canada. There are enough of them that every year there should be a coach put in. Now, if there was a year where there wasn't, they're still keeping it at 1 a year. So if we ever encounter a year where there's legitimately not a Hall of Fame caliber coach, then we will cross that bridge when we come to it. But to me, right now there's a line of coaches waiting to get in that I think are Hall of Fame caliber. So I like separating it. And the contributor category is good too, right? Now we're going to get maybe more broadcasters, more writers, more, of the people who maybe we didn't really know, but were instrumental in the growth of the league. Like, I think this is good for both, but definitely good for the coaches because, there's a line forming. The other change that they made was now you only need 1 year retired from the league. So Bill Belichick, everyone brings up Bill Belichick. If you want to take Bill Belichick, yes, he would theoretically be eligible for 2026, right? He's not done coaching. Why is everybody bringing up Belichick? He's going to coach again. You think he's going to enjoy being on the Pat McAfee show? That's going to be his football, like the extent of his footballs? No way. He's going to give it one more shot, right? He's got to. People act like the Dallas Cowboys don't exist. That's where he's going. We all know this. But anyway, they're lessening the waiting time down to a year. And I think it's to try and prevent such a logjam. Right? If in 2026, so this year you put in Shanahan, then next year you put in Belichick, then the year after you go back to Tom Coughlin, and then maybe Andy Reid is retired by then, and then you put him in, and then you go back. Like, you could see this line of Hall of Fame caliber coaches dissipating over the next half a decade and still being able to put in the no-brainer guys like a Bill Belichick and an Andy Reid. And when it comes to coaches too, think about how much longer coaches coach than players play. So do we need 5 years to decide whether Mike Shanahan is a Hall of Fame coach? I didn't think it took me that long to understand that he was a Hall of Fame coach. 1 year actually seems a bit too aggressive for me, but we probably don't need to wait 5 years to weigh, 20 or 30 years or more of coaching. So, significant changes to be sure. And I think for the better for the most part. And the best news, perhaps, if you're a Broncos fan, is that Belichick is not, even if he is legitimately retired, will not affect Mike Shanahan getting in to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in the year 2025, because make no mistake about it, he is the most deserving, eligible coaching candidate that is out there right now. Story number 3, speaking of coaches, the Denver Post is saying that they have been informed by the University of Colorado football team that their sports columnist, Sean Keeler, will no longer be able to ask questions at any Coach Prime or CU football. I believe it is any CU football. It's not just, hey, you can't speak to Deion Sanders, I believe. But we know this is born out of the interaction between Sean Keeler and Deion Sanders a couple of weeks ago. He may still be able to ask questions. No. Sean Keeler will not be able to ask questions at any football-related activity, but he will still be credentialed, and other members of the Denver Post staff will be able to ask questions. I don't know that you care that much about which writers in particular have access and which ones don't, and I would certainly say keeping somebody from asking questions is not as bad as banning them completely from the event itself, which CU did not do. But all this is born out of the interaction a couple weeks ago between Keeler and Deion Sanders. Here's what matters in all of this. Deion Sanders has a clause in his contract that allows for him to essentially say, that guy doesn't get to ask me any more questions, without even him saying it. Although Deion Sanders did a couple of weeks ago. He said, I'm not going to answer your question until you answer mine. But it is in Deion Sanders' contract. This is before he even met Sean Keeler. Sean Keeler asked a question of him. He had it in his contract that he only has to answer questions from mutually agreed upon media members. Here's where it's problematic. Here's where it's a bad look. One, Deion Sanders has not done anything in college football to warrant such a clause. It feels like a clause that like Nick Saban would get. Like, I've been doing this for 30 years and I've won all these championships. You know what? I'm going to get this. It's a wild clause to have in his contract. And Deion Sanders has done little to nothing to deserve that, other than negotiated it with Colorado. Okay, but the perception is Deion Sanders does not have this status within college football necessary to warrant such a clause in his contract. And where it also matters is that Deion Sanders looks a little soft here. Looks like he can't. Not that he can't handle, but like just doesn't want to. I only want to talk to people that have nice things to say to me. That's the way it comes off. There will be other critical questions asked of him, but he is basically leaving himself the ability to decline any question that may be hard to answer, may be critical of his program. It's not a good look. And this is another thing that you add to the list, that the only way Deion Sanders puts all of this on the back burner and makes it not a big deal is if he wins. But everything, the Saudi Arabia thing and Shador saying that every team believes we're their Super Bowl, all this kind of stuff, you just keep coming back to they better win. They better win. because there's a lot of stuff that is building up behind the dam here that if CU adds another 4-win season to the mix, oh my gosh. That dam is going to break, and they were going to get flooded with criticism. And no, they are not right now. They are not. Trust me, it's pretty 50-50 in terms of negative and positive when it comes to Deion Sanders. You don't care who gets to ask questions or who doesn't, but it matters that Deion Sanders cares and gets to choose. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the 3 stories that are driving the show. I mentioned the Pro Football Hall of Fame changing their policy, and that will probably lead to more than a few coaches getting in over the next few years, or a steady stream of coaches getting in. How about Sean Payton? Where is he in the line here? Is he even in line to be inducted into Canton, Ohio? Let's get into that conversation next on Extra Sports 1300. Today, the Colorado State Fair begins in Pueblo with everything that you know and love about the State Fair and maybe some things that you didn't know you loved, but you will when you go down to Pueblo starting today through September 2nd. Free attractions, a carnival, concerts, so much stuff going on. You can plan your visit at coloradostatefair.com. And because I would like to make sure that you experience the Colorado State Fair the right way, which is being able to do everything, I have a pair of gate admissions to the Colorado State Fair plus 2 carnival passes. Now, just for those of you who are planning a trip to Pueblo, just know that one doesn't necessarily get you the other. So that's why we're pairing them up. So you get gate admissions and carnival passes for you and one other person. You decide. Just text FAIR and your name to 719-247-1313. That's FAIR and your name to 247-1313. The 13th texter will get 2 gate admissions, 2 carnival passes to the Colorado State Fair. And still, whether you win or not, coloradostatefair.com would be a good place to go. So you know exactly what you are doing and looking forward to down in Pueblo. Couple of texts here. Couple of texts from the 719. Dion reminds me of Tiger's media issues prior to the divorce. That's an interesting one. I do not recall reporters, Tiger being combative with reporters, or or the PGA shutting down certain media members and outlets from being able to ask Tiger questions. I'm not questioning. I'm legitimately saying I don't recall that. So that's interesting that happened with Tiger Woods. It's not good. It's not good when anybody does it. And when you have accomplished as little as Deion Sanders, it looks even worse. All the more reason why it's got to win. Win. And little stuff like this won't be as big of a deal. And oh, by the way, then what will Sean Keeler have to be negative about? And I say that knowing full well that he will find something to be negative about. From Tom, how is Shanahan, Kaufman, Holmgren, and Reeves not in the Hall of Fame? Do you think the criteria for coaches and players is different? Seems like it's easier for a player to get in than a coach. I don't. The easy explanation is only one coach gets in per year, and I think that's mostly it. That's mostly what it is. One gets in every year, where as opposed to what 5, 6, 7, 8 players every single year. So that's part of it. That's why the log jam. I don't know that there's a ton of difference in criteria, but I know a fascinating experiment. One of the names you threw out there. So I think most people would say Mike Shanahan's a Hall of Fame coach, right? 2 Super Bowls, bringing in Alex Gibbs, and going to that zone run that is now been so popular, and the coaching tree, that famous photo of all his Washington, his babies, all his babies, like his real baby and Kyle Shanahan, but Sean McVay and Raheem Morris and Mike McDaniel and Matt LaFleur. I think Shanahan's easy. I really got to hear the counter argument for Mike Shanahan getting in the Hall of Fame. Now, you can argue maybe Actually, I don't know that I could. You'll if Belichick legitimately stays retired and Shanahan doesn't get in for some reason this year, you can easily make the argument that Bill Belichick is more deserving of the Hall of Fame than Mike Shanahan. But of the guys that you just listed, Tom, and then I added Marty Schottenheimer on the list that I wrote down today. I think Shanahan's at the top of that list. I do. But an interesting little experiment would be Tom Coughlin. Because to me, if Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer, then Tom Coughlin should go in with him. Right? I talk about these Hall of Fames being museums and telling the story of the sport. If you're legitimately just going to hold up Eli Manning and say, look at this guy, he beat the Patriots twice, that would be a bit disingenuous. That was a team effort. And also it was a helmet that helped. So I would like David Tyree's helmet to be in Canton, and it might already be. They can send memorabilia at any time. There's no waiting period for memorabilia. I need David Tyree's helmet. I need Eli Manning, and I need Tom Coughlin in this same class. If Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer, then Tom Coughlin easily is a Hall of Famer. I'll put it this way. Tom Coughlin is more deserving of the Hall of Fame as a coach than Eli Manning is as a quarterback. He is. Think about what Tom Coughlin did. He didn't bring the Jacksonville Jaguars into the NFL, but he was their coach. He brought them to an AFC championship game. Like he didn't have a Hall of Fame resume with Jacksonville. What he did in Jacksonville would not be enough to put Tom Coughlin into the Hall of Fame. But if everyone thinks, oh my goodness, Eli Manning's got to be in the Hall of Fame. Of course he's in the Hall of Fame. He won 2 Super Bowls. He beat Brady. Okay, then put Tom Coughlin in. Tom Coughlin should be a no-brainer. So, and I actually think that might be the only okay way to present those Giants teams. To say, here's Eli, here's Coughlin, and here's the helmet. They all are in Canton together. And then we can properly acknowledge what the Giants did. But putting in Eli Manning is not telling the whole story. So I think that Tom Coughlin is a Hall of Fame coach. I would make the case that Eli Manning is not a Hall of Fame quarterback. That's how far I would go. But I have acknowledged, I have come to grips with the idea that Eli Manning is going to get in. And all I am asking is that Tom Coughlin be right alongside it. So, Shanahan, Coughlin. And then you have Schottenheimer, Holmgren, Reeves, you could make a Hall of Fame case for all of them. Then you have Belichick and Andy Reid. So they have a lot of coaches that they got to get into the Hall of Fame. I think they're all Hall of Famers. The two, if you told me that I had to cut down on, I think Shanahan and Coughlin, absolutely. I think Holmgren has a very strong case. And then I would go Reeves and Schottenheimer. I think both of them should get in, but I don't know that I would be too upset if they did not. One never won a Super Bowl. One never even made it to a Super Bowl. That's tough. That's tough to overcome. So where I'm at with Reeves and Schottenheimer is not that they are wholly undeserving, but I just think that there is a new candidate seemingly every year that gets above them on the list, and that may make it so Schottenheimer and Dan Reeves don't get into the Hall of Fame. I was thinking about this earlier today, though. So Belichick and Reed of the current NFL coaches, and I'll call Belichick a current coach, and I'll call Pete Carroll a current head coach for the purposes of this exercise. I know one is legitimately retired, the other one's taking a sabbatical. Belichick and Reed are shoo-ins. Tomlin, Sean Payton, and Pete Carroll. Are any of them Hall of Famers? And I would say right now, none of them are. None of them are. Sean Payton is not a Hall of Famer. Pete Carroll is not a Hall of Famer. Mike Tomlin is not a Hall of Famer. Now, the advantage they have is that they are still going, except for Pete Carroll. I think he's done and he won't be a Hall of Fame coach. Maybe if it was the football Hall of Fame, then Pete Carroll would get in. But not strictly the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I don't think Pete Carroll is a Hall of Famer. Now, Mike Tomlin and Sean Payton have a legitimate chance because they have a few years left. Mike Tomlin could be the winningest Steelers coach in history, more than Chuck Noll, in the not so distant future. And Sean Payton could pass Bill Parcells in a couple of years. Realistically, even with my expectations for the Denver Broncos, Sean Payton in the next couple of years will pass his mentor, Bill Parcells, in wins. But I don't even think for either of them that will be enough. I think that will be significant. I think if Mike Tomlin is going to coach his entire career in Pittsburgh, I feel like he's got to get two or win a Super Bowl. He's at least got to get there. Sean Payton, I think Sean Payton, the Denver Broncos will have to be in the postseason multiple years during his tenure and be a threat. The reason why Mike Tomlin has to go to a Super Bowl and Sean Payton doesn't, I think it's because Sean Payton would have two franchises that he was able to rebuild, even if he doesn't win or go to a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos. I think Sean Payton could still potentially get into the Hall of Fame. I think Sean Payton's taking two different teams will weigh heavier than Mike Tomlin, let's say, never having a losing season or having one losing season all in the same place. Sean Payton, and this is why he came back, right? This is the whole thing. Sean Payton in New Orleans, not a Hall of Fame coach. On track to become a Hall of Fame coach, not a Hall of Fame coach. He's got to do something significant with the Broncos. Maybe not going to or winning a Super Bowl, but it's got to be multiple playoff appearances, maybe an AFC championship appearance or two. I know everybody's really high on Bo Nix, and I like Bo Nix as well. I don't think Tomlin, Carroll, or Peyton get into the Hall of Fame. I don't know that any of them. Pete Carroll's not a Hall of Famer, and I don't know that Sean Payton and Mike Tomlin will do enough to become Hall of Famers. We shall see. Got a long way to go for that, right? But yeah, Shanahan, Coughlin, Holmgren. Marty Schottenheimer had a .613 winning percentage in the regular season, even if you add in his poor postseason record. He still has a better winning percentage than Bill Parcells, Hank Stram, Don Coryell, Marv Levy, and Jimmy Johnson, who are all Hall of Famers. Schottenheimer's not a hill, getting Marty into the Pro Football Hall of Fame is not the hill I'm necessarily willing to die on, and I do acknowledge that there are other coaches that are more worthy of him, but if it was just a yes-no, yeah, Schottenheimer should get in. And I think Dan Reeves probably should. I really go back and forth about Schottenheimer and Reeves, though. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts. Will Sean Payton become a Hall of Fame coach? Or what does he have to do in order to make that happen? 719-247-1313. Coming up next, the Colorado Springs Switchbacks make a significant move and then release, I think, a significant statement following the move. I'll explain next. Wrapping things up for the week, and from Circa Resort and Casino, Ryan Kaufman with you out in Vegas. Tomorrow night, I will be back in Colorado Springs because the Colorado Springs Switchbacks are taking on New Mexico United. They are bolstered with a good result, an exciting finish to their last match, and now they head into a stretch of their next 5 being at home at Widener Field, and they are trying to make a move towards the top of the Western Conference table. And when you think about all of that, I can understand why the initial news of the day, or the news of the day regarding the Colorado Springs Switchbacks, might come as a little bit of a shock. If you have listened to Roland and I call matches, you know that both he and I have sung the praises of Malik Foster on many different occasions. And it was surprising to me as well to see the news today that they were transferring Malik Foster to Indy 11. In the middle of a chase for the top of the table, home playoff game, 4 of their next 5 at home. This is a crucial stretch coming off of a big result, an exciting result, into transfer someone who has been arguably your best player at times this season. It's curious timing. Now, I will say that you can't control the timing a lot. Like, sometimes the deal gets done when it gets done, right? We had Zach Wilson, the Broncos bringing in Zach Wilson the same week as the draft, and it's just that's when the deal got done. Because it didn't keep them from taking a quarterback anyway later on that week. So deals happen when they happen. But I understand that the timing is a little bit curious. But then I read the and look, I'm reacting. I suppose I should feel I don't know. Should I have known before the general public? I probably not. But when I read the quote from Stephen Hogan, the sporting director of the team, it wasn't as surprising. He said, "We want to thank Malik for the contribution to the team over the last 2 seasons. His effort on the field was always greatly appreciated, but it didn't warrant the values of the team and team-first mentality that my coaching staff has worked hard to implement all season. We wish Malik all the best in Indy." James Chambers, the head coach, chimed in and said, "We thank Malik for his contributions during his time in Colorado Springs. As an organization, we hold the values set in place for the team in extremely high regard. We continue to move forward with a team-first mentality." This culture that the Switchbacks have has been growing over the last few years. And while the Switchbacks have brought in and sent away many very talented players, the thing that has remained is that culture. And if there is a player that is running counter to that culture at a crucial juncture of the season, because you take it and you say losing a player of Malik's talents at this juncture of the season, yes, it's a little worrisome. But also someone that is maybe running counter to the culture that the Switchbacks have in place, that could be equally problematic at this juncture in the season. I don't know. They don't tell me anything, so I'm not reporting anything. I'm just reading what you read today, and this is the conclusion I come to. That the most important thing is the culture. The most important thing is the mentality of this squad. And someone who may be disrupting that because of their own personal goals and aspirations could be just as damaging to the Switchbacks' chances this year as simply losing the player. Now, they did go out and they acquired a midfielder on loan. I don't think these two moves are. We transferred Malik Foster, so now we bring in player on loan. I will double check that with Hoagie tomorrow. We'll talk to him after the match and see if that's starting. If that one has anything to do with the other. I don't think it does. Again, deals get done when they get done. But they end up adding Cole Moroka from Columbus Crew. That's of the MLS. So a young player certainly fits with the USL Championship given his young age. But as the Switchbacks try to hold down the midfield, have some more options in the midfield, this is a good pickup. I don't think this is necessarily the answer to transferring Malik Foster. I don't think the Switchbacks are done making moves. I'll say that. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock kickoff, 6:30. Roland Vargas and I will be on these very airwaves bringing you the Switchbacks and New Mexico United. For now, I will have to bid you adieu and thank you for tuning in all this week. Today, the last 2 days, my thanks to Circa Resort and Casino. My goodness, have they been far too kind to me over the next couple of days, and I'm looking forward to maximizing every moment I have left in Las Vegas and here at Circa. They've been the most gracious hosts, and I very much look forward to making Circa my go-to destination when I come out to Las Vegas, and I would certainly suggest that you do the same. And last but certainly not least, DJ Michaels. Again, you guys don't even understand everything that DJ Michaels is doing. If it was just dealing with me in this show, it would be impressive enough. I promise you it's far more than that. And you wouldn't even know because DJ is a pro's pro. So thank you, my friend. I'll talk to you tomorrow, and I'll talk to all of you tomorrow as well. 6:30, our pre-match coverage begins. Switchbacks and New Mexico United here on Extra Sports 1300.